On the morning of October 3, 2025, New York City was tense, its skyline glinting under the weight of history in the making. Inside a grand hall lined with flags, cameras flashed as Donald Trump signed what he called the 10 sanctions package against Africa, an executive order that would ripple across oceans and continents. In one stroke of a pen, assets were frozen, trade came to a halt, and technology transfers were abruptly severed. It was a declaration of economic war, one that placed an entire continent under pressure unseen in decades. But even as the ink dried, one name began to rise from the heart of the Sahel: Ibrahim Traoré, the young Burkinab leader whom Trump himself had once described as the architect of Africa's rebellion. To Washington, he was a problem. To Africans, he was becoming a symbol. The sanctions were swift and brutal. More than $12 billion belonging to African governments, companies, and even private citizens were locked in American banks. Financial institutions across the continent were disconnected from the global, SWIFT system, cutting off Africa's arteries to international finance. Then came trade restrictions. African exports to the United States, from cocoa to gold to rare minerals, would now face tariffs of up to 25%. Investment channels from Wall Street were shut, causing a 60% drop in capital flow within a single fiscal quarter. It was a blow aimed not just at governments, but at livelihoods. The mining sector, the pride and backbone of the Sahel, was hit hardest. Niger's uranium, once vital to Western reactors, now faced a 40% tax. Gold producers in Mali and Burkina Faso were slapped with restrictions so severe that hundreds of mining sites paused operations overnight. And as if to ensure no corner was spared, military cooperation contracts worth $1.8 billion were canceled, helicopters grounded, supply chains disrupted, and spare parts for vehicles trapped behind new customs barriers. In one move, America had not only attacked Africa's economy, but also its ability to defend itself. The digital front was next. Africa's dream of entering the 5G era vanished as $900 million worth of telecom contracts were voided. Satellites that once connected rural hospitals and schools were denied access to U.S. technologies. Families suffered too. Under the new rules, African immigrants in America could send home no more than $1,000 per month. Anything above would be blocked, cutting off more than $1 billion in annual remittances. For countless families in the Sahel, this was not an abstract policy. It was food off their tables. Visas were slashed by 80%. Scholarships were revoked. 15,000 students found themselves stranded mid-semester, their dreams suddenly frozen like their nation's assets. Aid shipments were halved, medical imports taxed 50%, and even humanitarian programs faced new bureaucratic chains. A 10th and final measure was diplomatic. Africa's leaders were banned from more than 20 U.S.-hosted international conferences. They were told bluntly that Washington no longer considered them partners, but pariahs. In a press conference that followed, Trump listed his justifications. 5 reasons, he said, demanded decisive action. The first, he claimed, was the gold oil axis. African nations, particularly those in the Sahel, were accused of bypassing the dollar in their energy and mineral trades, choosing instead to transact directly with Russia and China. This, Trump declared, is a direct attack on America's financial dominance. He pointed to Angola, Nigeria, and South Africa, where early experiments with non-dollar trade had begun to surface. What Washington saw was not sovereignty, but sabotage. The second accusation was monetary, the birth of a new African currency, the Afro. For years, economists in West Africa had dreamed of freeing themselves from the CFA franc, a colonial-era currency still tethered to France.